Yaha! Hello, all you merry banquet givers. This is your old friend Canny Caswell, uncle of that jazz reprobate Caswell, the scoundrel. And this time I'm going to give you some cunning tips and advice in how to give a banquet for all those people you don't like. It's an art form, so off we go without further ado. The first thing you do is you hire a wonderful butler, unless you happen to employ one already. Somebody like Carson's from Downton Abbey would be absolutely marvellous, very dignified and extremely inscrutable. So what you do is you issue invitations to people that you can't stand, nay, even detest. And the other type of person are the crashing bores. We all know them, the ones that go on and on and on and on about themselves and never pause to listen to anybody else. And the idea is to get them all to this banquet of yours. So the invitations have gone out. The butler awaits their arrival and your room is prepared, your biggest dining room, and it's got to be your best banqueting table. Not your 9th best banqueting table or your 14th best, but your very best banqueting table that's capable of seating at least 12 or maybe 16 people. The butler lets everybody in turn, gets them properly seated at the table, and at that point they notice that the table is wonderfully laid up, as you see here, for a 4-course meal with silver service and all the trimmings. And as well as being laid up with wonderful cutlery, there are superb smells issuing from the kitchen. We've got wonderful aromas of lobster, beef bourguignon, steak, pheasant, partridge and other types of game. These wonderful smells pervade the room and all the wonderful vegetables are sizzling away and you can hear everything roasting nicely and you're licking your lips for a wonderful evening. So as they sat down, they noticed that not only is the table laid up with the full silver service, but in front of them is the most generous of wine glasses. Everybody has one of these. Next to that, there is a champagne glass. And in fact, if your cut crystal champagne glass is thought to be too old-fashioned, because in my day this was the way of drinking champagne, you might prefer the modern IKEA idea of having a flute. So you've got your generous wine glass, your champagne flute, you've got your cut glass goblet for the water. Wonderful piece of crystal. So they say, my goodness, Canny Caswell's excelled himself this time. What a wonderful dinner he's laying on. But in fact, where is he? So they asked the butler where Canny's got to. Well, what I do as the host, and what you do as the host, is you never appear from first to last. This is the crafty part. You let them get on with it, and let them think they're being looked after by the butler, while you're in the next room, looking through a peephole. Now, surely you're not going to tell me that you haven't got a peephole through into your dining room. It's a must for every host. But just in case you haven't, a Black & Decker plus a 7/8 diameter bit designed for masonry will do the job very nicely. So there you are, you're looking through the peephole. They're now sat down with the silver service and their full set of glasses and they're awaiting the dinner. So in comes your butler again And very inscrutably, without any explanation at all, he's been instructed to remove the big wine glass and to replace it with one this size. Furthermore, your champagne flute is replaced in the same way, very quietly and deftly, with a flutette less than half the size. In fact, as it's a small flute, I tend to call it a piccolo. Now we come to the water. I think, well, what's he going to do with the water? Well, I'll show you. As far as the water is concerned, the nice big cut glass goblet is removed and replaced with a very small plain glass for the water. Next, the water decanter is brought in by the butler, and remembering that this decanter is for the entire table of 12 or 16, instead of 3 or 4 quart-sized decanters, the water arrives in this one and only in a little decanter this size, and the butler duly decants a thimbleful of water into the bottom of the water glass. Now that we've dealt with laying the table and preparing the glasses, we come on to the meal proper. The first course in our banquet is going to be the soup. And in this particular case, remember, they've already been smelling the wonderful soups from the kitchen. Oxtail soup. They can recognise wonderful tomato and asparagus soup. They can also smell the wonderful aroma of crab and lobster and delicious soups of that sort. But when the butler finally comes and plonks the soup dish in front of them, all that's in there is gruel. And furthermore, the spoon that they eat it with is submerged in the gruel. And I'll show you what you have. It's called a runcible spoon, and it's perforated many times. And as you'll imagine, there's extreme difficulty in ladling the soup into your mouth if it's consistently draining and dribbling through the holes. So that can make the soup course last for 40, 45 or even 50 minutes. Then we come on to the main course, and this is a very, very small pork chop, a few peas, and similar accoutrements. They are augmented by a bottle of pickled onions, and we've also got here a bottle of diced or desiccated gherkins. Now, normally when you're grovelling for your gherkins or for your pickled onions, you have a special pickled onion fork, and it's got very sharp tangs and it's very long because it's a deep bottle. But for your guests, you've very cunningly laid on a spoon that's far too short. And looking through your peephole, you can have no end of merriment watching them trying to get the pickles down here with the fork that's up here. And you'll notice that whereas the real one had sharp tines, this one has been deliberately blunted by yourself down in the shed, in order that even if they do manage to reach the pickled onions or the desiccated gherkins, there's no risk of them making off with anything that you've provided. We now move to the dessert course. I needn't say too much about the cheese board because you've got the spirit of the whole thing. Not too many grapes, not too much cheese, and not too much choice. And finally, as an after-dinner treat, something that goes right back to Victorian times is the Knickerbocker Glory. So what do we have? We have the Sunday glass, a really generous Sunday glass in this case, with a Knickerbocker Glory spoon. Because as you know, a Knickerbocker Glory comprises a layer of ice cream, some nice strawberry syrup, a different flavour of ice cream, maybe some wafers, a bit more syrup, some more ice cream and so on, right up to the top. And you're thinking, what's going to happen here? Well, of course, your butler has removed the proper Sunday spoon and he's provided this. And no doubt you might be wondering that you might be accused of being too mean and too parsimonious, but no, this is just deep enough to scrape at least a little of the ice cream from the top layer, so at least they feel they've had a little bit of value from your hospitality before the rest of it is totally unreachable. And of course you can enjoy finishing it all up once they've gone. Now then, all you banquet givers and you merrymakers, I hope you've enjoyed my little hints and tips and wheezes and dodges and ways of presenting a banquet to people you dislike intensely. A very important art, I might say. And now, just before I bid you all farewell this time, I would like to just tell you my favourite story, which I reminded myself about when talking about Knickerbocker Glories. Now, this man goes into an ice cream parlour somewhere in London in the 1930s, and he goes over to the counter, and the lady behind the counter notices he's walking in a very awkward way with his knees together, his ankles outwards, and he's lurching towards the counter like this, very painfully, as I say, knees together. And she says, "Good afternoon, sir. What can I do you for?" And he says, "Can I have a Knickerbocker Glory, please?" So she says, "Certainly, sir. One Knickerbocker Glory coming up." So as I described earlier, she picks up the glass, in goes some ice cream, in goes the syrup, in goes a wafer, a bit more ice cream and so and so. And just before it gets right to the top, the lady behind the counter, she says to the gentleman, she says, "Crushed nuts, sir?" And he says, "No, arthritis of the knees." So there we are. I hope you've enjoyed my little story. I hope you've enjoyed my talk. And I'll see all you prudent, cautious merrymakers again another time. This is Canny Caswell saying bye-bye for now. Bye-bye for now.